Hello everyone, welcome back to the CyberRangers Scenario Composer training course. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at cloud templates. So in the previous video, we got an introduction to the Scenario Composer, and we briefly touched upon the process of creating or setting up a scenario. We also briefly went over what a cloud template is. In this video, we're going to be turning our attention to cloud templates, and we're going to be going through the process of creating a cloud template, managing the permissions, exploring the various elements that make up a cloud template, and how to submit a cloud template for approval. And we'll then finally move on to attaching a cloud template that you have created to a scenario. So let's get started. To begin with, what is a cloud template? Well, a cloud template in the context of the CyberRangers platform is an instance of the infrastructure that contains various servers that will be used within a scenario. Simply put, a cloud template is the lab environment that you would like to use for your scenario. And the lab environment will consist of multiple systems and multiple networks. So this is where you get to create your very own lab environment based on your own requirements. To create a lab environment, what you will need to do is head over to Cloud Templates. Now, in your case, you will only have a list of cloud templates that you have created or that have been shared with you. In my case, I can see a much larger list of cloud templates that I have created, as well as cloud templates that others have created. That is because I have administrator privileges. But in your case, your view should be limited to your own cloud templates. To create one, click on Create New. You will then be prompted to specify the cloud template type. In this case, you can go for the default, which is enriched, and the cloud framework should be OpenStack. We'll be touching upon the other cloud frameworks that can be used in later videos. And finally, the creation strategy. So if your template or your lab environment will not utilize the injector engine, then stick with the default creation strategy. If you do intend on using the injector engine for your lab environment or for your cloud template, then select injector engine. We will be covering the injector engine and how it can be used within scenarios to emulate or simulate activity in its own course. So for now, we'll click on default. You will then need to provide a cloud template name. This should be as descriptive as possible with regards to what this cloud template pertains to. So for example, in this case, we can call this one Eternal Blue. We will be setting up, for the purpose of this course, a cloud template that can be used to teach students how to exploit the Eternal Blue vulnerability. As you can see, the author here is specified as my username. You can change that to reflect whatever you want, and you can then provide it with a description. So in this case, I can change this to, again, provide I can provide a brief description here to explain what this cloud template is being used for. So we can call this Eternal Blue exploitation tutorial. And we can also provide some cloud template tags. So I can put this under exploitation and maybe CVE and maybe Windows, just to better categorize this cloud template based on what's being covered or what it is being used to teach. You can then click on Create. You will now be taken to the cloud template page where you'll be able to track the status of the cloud template. It'll also provide you with the name, the author, and the description that you provided. You then have the top bar here, which is very important, and we'll go through that in a second. And you then have your actual view mode that can be sorted through or can actually be cycled through different views. One of which is the diagram view, which gives you a very cool 2D graph or 2D representation of your lab environment. By default, you will be provided with the following infrastructure where you have the representation of the external network that goes through the router, which is automatically added for you, and this comes into the private network for the lab environment, and it provides you with the subnet that has been assigned for this cloud template, which can be customized, and we'll be exploring how to do that in another video within this course. As I said, you can cycle through the different views. If you click on table, that will sort all of the elements within your cloud and within your cloud template or lab environment in the form of a table. You can also take a look at the list view, which gives you a much better representation of the elements that exist within your network. So as you can see, we have a private network and a router, and we can cycle back to the diagram. To get started, let's explore this top bar. So the top bar is where you can firstly submit your cloud template for approval. So you can see currently this cloud template is in a draft status, which means that I'm still making changes to it, or generally speaking means that the individual or the owner of this cloud template is still customizing it or making changes to it. Once you are done with your cloud template and feel that it is production ready and it is ready to be attached or linked to a scenario, you can click on it and click on submit for approval. In my case, I'm the administrator, so I have the ability to approve it, but in your case, you'll be able to submit it for approval. Once it is approved, you'll be able to link it or attach it to an already existing scenario, which we took a look at how to create and customize in the previous video. You can then click on permissions, which works very similar to the permissions for the scenario, where you can essentially specify the permissions for yourself or the current user you're using, as well as other team members that you can add or specify permissions. So for example, if you are working in a team and you'd like to collaborate or work on the same cloud template together, and the user is already part of the scenario composer, you can easily just search for their username here, add them, and then provide them with permissions based on what they should or what they can and cannot be able to do. You can then click on the actual network icon here, which is referring to the VPN status. So there's multiple ways of interacting with the systems within your cloud template. Because this is a fully fledged lab environment, you have the ability to test the systems and also customize them. And there's multiple ways of doing so. We'll be touching upon this in the next video, when we'll be focusing primarily on the server nodes themselves. You can also toggle the visibility. This allows you to make this cloud template visible to all users on the scenario composer. This is recommended if you would like to share this or collaborate with others. However, in most cases, you typically want to keep that hidden. You can also lock a particular cloud template. So if I click on that and I refresh this page here, you should be able to see that that has been updated. So there we are. In this case, it's still saying locked, but if we click on cloud templates, let's click on that here. You can see that we can also lock it. That will prevent any changes from being made to it, so that other users cannot make any changes to your cloud template. And these two icons are pertinent to the actual verification process of this cloud template. So if I click on diagram not verified, as the creator of a cloud template, once you've verified that the diagram is accurate, or if you've set up a diagram in a particular way that might be helpful to students or might be useful with regards to representing the correct infrastructure that you are trying to build, then you can click on diagram verified there, and you can see that the cloud template diagram is set to verified. That doesn't mean that the cloud template is verified. You're simply verifying the actual diagram. Once you have made your changes, or you have ensured that this cloud template is production ready and it can be attached to a scenario, you can click on bundle template. That will essentially bundle all the changes that you have made, and you can then click on submit for approval. Now let's talk about the actual lab environment or cloud template as it is. As it stands, you can see that we haven't added any system to it. So the current status is set to stopped. That means that the systems, if they did exist within this lab environment, are in a stopped state. Now, if you wanted to interact with these systems and make changes to them, you can click on create. However, do note that whenever you click on create, if you do not take a snapshot of the systems that you have made changes to and you stop it, then that would essentially mean that your changes have not been saved, because when you stop an instance of a cloud template, it'll essentially be deleted, and you have to ensure that the changes that you're making to systems have actually been backed up in the form of a snapshot. So this will make sense in a couple of seconds. So again, we can add additional elements to this lab environment by clicking on add cloud node. Right over here, you can see we have network, subnet, router, software config, server, and container. In this video, we'll only be exploring, we're just going to be taking a look at the fundamentals of managing or creating, managing, and modifying a cloud template. We'll be exploring all of these elements in their own videos. So for now, let's just click on server. A server simply refers to a system that you'd like to add. So we can provide it with a name. So in this case, I can say Windows 7. I can just provide it with a name. And I can, under the description, I can say Windows 7 vulnerable to Eternal Blue. All right, I can then specify the cloud image. Now, CyberRanges provides you with a set of cloud images, both Linux and Windows, that you can use within your lab environment. So for example, in my case, if I was looking for Windows 7, I could type that in. Let me just type it in correctly here. And in this case, I'll just get rid of the 7 there. And I can try and find the correct cloud image that will work in my case. So you can see we have Windows Server 2008 R2. So that will work in the case of Eternal Blue. But let's see if we can find a Windows 7 box here. So you can see we have quite a few. So you can essentially search for what you're looking for. I'm just going to see if I can find Windows 7 here. All right, so I've found the Windows 7 cloud image. So you can see we have Windows 7 Professional Service Pack 1. So that works for me in this case. Under the group, you can specify the operating system. So you can filter through cloud images based on the operating system. You can also specify the image type, where you'll be able to filter through all images, base images, and snapshots. When setting up your cloud template for the first time, it is always recommended to use or to specify that you're interested in base images, as these are images that have not been customized and, for lack of a better word, are vanilla installs and haven't had any changes made to them. And of course, you can then toggle the visibility here, and you can also limit your search to your own cloud images. So in my case, I'll just click on this one here. You will now be prompted to specify the cloud flavor. This is simply referring to the resources that you'd like associated or attached to this cloud image. So, if we're using Windows 7, we can specify a cloud flavor that might be of use to us, and this is simply referring to the resources that you'd like to provide to this system. So in this case, we can go for the 1 gig of RAM, 20 gigabytes of disk space, and 1 CPU. So based on your own requirements, you can specify as many resources as possible. Of course, that will tie into the cost associated with hosting this system. So I'll just go for the 1 gig of RAM. You will then be automatically prompted to specify a new network interface for this particular system. So in this case, we can just call this Ethernet 1. And it's currently under the private network. Remember, we haven't created a network yet. We'll be exploring that in the next video. And so we don't need to specify the network or the subnet. The only thing we need to specify is the IP address that we would like to essentially associate with this system, so that we can communicate with it. And this will be static once you've set it, and of course you have the ability to change it before you publish this cloud template. So it'll automatically add the subnet CIDR annotation here for you. So you just need to provide the IP itself. So for example, we can say that we want the IP to be 192.168.125.100, and we can click on save. Once that is done, you can click on create, and that is going to add this to your lab environment under the private network. As you can see, it's been added. So you can drag and drop elements within your lab environment in the diagram view, just so that you can see them much clearly. So you can see we have the WAN access that comes into the router, and then of course we have the Windows 7 box here. So currently, if we click on the Windows 7 box, you can see that it's currently offline, and that's denoted by this little icon here, which is currently grayed out. We also have the VM specifications tab, which allows you to take a snapshot. So whenever you make changes to this system, you always ensure that you take a snapshot, so that whenever your cloud template instance is stopped, those changes are saved. So whenever you start it up again, you're back to where you left off. You can then click on public information. This is in reference to what is displayed to the student once this cloud template is published. So server info, this will expose information such as IP addresses, services, etc. It's recommended to keep that on. If you want to provide students access to the system via the physical RDP console, you can also click on enable, so that you have a console access there. And then, of course, you have the network interfaces attached to the system that we've already explored that. And we have services and outputs. We'll be taking a look at these in a bit. So once we've added a system here, we can just click on create, and that is going to start the cloud template and the systems contained within it so that we can start interacting with them. So I'm going to give this a couple of seconds to a couple of minutes. Based on the amount of systems you have added to your cloud template, it's going to take a while. So I'm just going to give this a couple of seconds. All right, so once the cloud template is started, you can see that the status is then set to running. You have the ability to suspend it, update it, and terminate it. So suspend is very useful when you just like to suspend it in its current state. And when you click on update, that will essentially update, the systems based on any configurations that you've made. And then, of course, you can terminate it. Terminating it will not delete it. It'll just, it'll just turn everything off. However, any changes you have made to that system, like this Windows 7 system, will be deleted. So whenever you're making any changes to the system, make sure to take a snapshot right over here. So you can just click on take a snapshot, and then you can go ahead and terminate it once the snapshot has been taken. Another method is to just suspend it so that you maintain it in its current state. But as good practice, always make sure to take a snapshot. Once the system is started up, or once the cloud template is started up, you can begin interacting with the systems contained within it. So if you click on the system, you can now see that it's green, which means it's currently active. You have the ability to restart this system independently of the actual cloud template instance itself. So that means you can restart individual systems. You can also shut off individual systems based on your own requirements. And you can also rebuild it based on its original configuration. You can obtain an RDP or VNC session based on the operating system type by clicking on the console tab here. That will allow you to easily access the system. So I'm just going to allow pop-ups, and you can see that'll redirect you to a new tab where you'll get a VNC session on the Windows 7 system. There we are. So, I can just input the following key combination. So Control Alt and Delete to log on. And then I can log into any of the predefined accounts here. So you now have the ability to modify the system based on your own requirements. You can go ahead and install software. While you're creating your cloud template, the systems within the cloud template instance will have internet access, so you can install software, you can customize it to your heart's content. And once that is done, you can then take a snapshot and you're pretty much good to go. The terminology or the functionality is very similar to a hypervisor like VirtualBox or VMware or any of the other third-party hypervisors, where you can essentially take a snapshot to save the changes, and you can always revert back to a particular snapshot or roll back to a particular snapshot. So from this perspective, you can continue adding systems. Of course, that'll increase the amount of resources being consumed by this cloud template and consequently, increase the cost associated with it. So do be cognizant of that and make sure that your cloud templates are as resource efficient as possible. And of course, that has to strike a balance between functionality and usability for the student. So we can go ahead and customize the system, we can log in, etc. And we can then make changes, and we can then take a snapshot, and we're pretty much good to go. Now, one thing that I wanted to point out, and this is something that's very important, in its current state, if you publish this cloud template as is with one target system, and let's say we had disabled the physical console from being accessed by students, once this is published, that would mean that students would need to connect to the CyberRange's VPN in order to access this system within the private network. Now, another mode you can go down, or another route you can explore, is the ability to add a Kali Linux system or an attacker system to this cloud template so that students can easily interact with the systems within this network via RDP or via web SSH. What that does is it allows you to negate the need for a VPN, or it negates the need for students to connect to the CyberRange's network via VPN. It essentially provides, it's very useful in providing students with a much better user experience, or it provides them with ease of access with regards to the actual cloud template itself and the systems contained within it. So once you've made your changes, you can go ahead and terminate this. In this case, I'll not do that, but let's take a look at the cloud template from the cloud templates page here. So you can see we have Eternal Blue. It's currently running. One of the really cool things you can do is you can clone it. So you can create clones of the same cloud template, with its current configuration. So if you're performing split testing, this is a very useful feature because you can essentially test how different lab environments work with different configurations. And that is really it when it comes down to cloud templates. In the next set of videos, we're going to be exploring all these elements or all the elements within a cloud template, and we're going to be creating our own cloud template that can be used to teach students how to exploit the Eternal Blue vulnerability. So I'll be seeing you in the next video.